Hello, my name is David Rhodes. I'm a software engineer on the MIM team. In this video, I will be going over the MIMQuery service that was added in MIM release 12.1. In this video, I will go over what the MIMQuery service is, prerequisites to using the MIMQuery service, how to activate the MIMQuery service, and then I will provide a brief demo. The MIMQuery service provides a programmatic means to obtain shared DASD resource usage information in a DASD sharing MII-plex, similar to what GQScan and ISGQuery macros provide in a GRS-plex. The MIMQuery service consists of two components, the MIMQuery macro interface and the MIMQuery auxiliary address space. The MIMQuery macro interface is a programmatic service to return accurate DASD resource information. The MIMQuery auxiliary address space is an address space created by the CA MII address space to manage MIMQuery requests. It utilizes the CA Common Services CCI component to communicate with MIMQuery on other systems in the MII plex. You can utilize the MIMQuery macro interface to programmatically request resource information from MIMQuery. To assist you in creating MIMQuery requests, we provide you with the MIMQuery macro parameter list and an example program that makes a request. The MIMQuery member of the CAI.cbtdmac dataset contains a dsect mapping for the standard MIMQuery parameter list. The macro contains detailed information on the use of the macro and how to incorporate it into assembler programs. The MIM QSAMP member of the CAI CBTD SAMP dataset contains a sample assembler language program that issues MIMQuery requests. This sample program is provided as a reference for use when coding programmatic MIMQuery requests. Here is a diagram to show the relationship between the MIM address space and the MIMQuery server. In this diagram, there are three MIMs, represented by the small squares, in MIMPlex, and communicate with each other via a control file, represented by the blue lightning bolts. Two of these systems are part of the same sysplex, represented by the oval. When MIMQuery is activated, an auxiliary address space is created on each system for the MIMQuery server. The MIMQuery servers communicate with each other over a CA Common Communication Interface, represented by the yellow lines. Once active, a job on any system can make a request using the MIMQuery macro for resource information. The request is evaluated and sent to each system via CCI. Each system creates and sends back a response. All the responses are collated and presented back to the requesting job. There are a couple of steps for you to take before you are able to use the MIMQuery service. You must install CA Common Communication Interface and have it configured to have a path between all systems in the MIMPlex. You must ensure that all necessary CA Common Service PTFs are installed on all systems in the MIMPlex, and you must be running at MIM release 12.1 or higher with compat level 12.0 or higher. Here is a current list of all CA Common Services and CA MIM PTFs that are required. All the prerequisites and required common service PTFs are listed in the MIM documentation at wiki.ca.com. After the prerequisites have been verified, the MIMQuery feature can be activated. The MIMQuery service requires global participation, and the service utilizes the activate feature command to validate that all systems can use the service. If any system is unable to start the MIMQuery service, then the command will fail. Once the MIMQuery service is active, you should update your MIM-init member to specify to automatically start MIMQuery when MIM is started. In the following demo, I will be running a 5-system MIMPlex, but I will only be starting 2 systems. My command and message prefix is the @ symbol. I will be running communication equals DASD, and GDIF will be active. First thing I'm going to do is start my MIM on XE03 with a load library that does not contain the MIMQuery server. Next, I'm going to start my MIM on XE13 with a load library that does contain the MIMQuery server. When I issued the MIM display feature command on XE03, we can see that MIMQuery is not a known feature. When I issue the same command on XE13, we can see that MIMQuery is a known feature but is not active. Let's go ahead and attempt to activate MIMQuery by issuing the activate feature MIMQuery, force command. The force operand is required since not all systems in the MIMPLEX are active. The activate command failed because MIMQuery is not a known feature on this system. If we issue the activate feature MIMQuery command on XE13, the command fails because not all systems in the MIMPLEX know about this feature. Now that we have seen how MIM will react when it is unable to activate the MIMQuery feature, let's dynamically activate a load library that does contain the MIMQuery feature. First, I will use the loadlib setAlternate command to dynamically add the load library. Now that the alternate load library has been allocated, we'll use the loadlib refresh command to dynamically switch to using that load library. Now on XE03, when I issue the display features command, we can see that the MIMQuery feature is available. Now that the feature is available to both systems, let's reissue the activate feature MIMQuery command. Keep in mind, since I am running on a 5-system MIMPLEX and I only have 2 systems active, I am required to use the force operand. Now when we issue the display features command, we can see that the MIMQuery service is active. Additional information on the MIMQuery service can be found in the MIM documentation at wiki.ca.com, or you can contact MIM technical support at support.ca.com.